Hi, my name's Addison Booth. I'm a Zoho consultant based in the UK. In this video, I'm going to be finally answering the question of how you set up a late fee in Zoho Books. This sort of forum post and Zoho Community has got over 10,000 views, 86 different replies spanning over 12 years, and there's still not been an answer on how to solve this. So today, I'm going to walk you through exactly step by step what you need to do to get a late fee set up and working in Zoho Books. So the first thing I'm going to do is show you how the function works, the way I've got it set up currently, and then I'll explain what you need to get started, and then we'll go on to setting it up step by step. So you can see here inside of my test Zoho Book system, we have 3 different invoices. 2 are overdue, 1 is due in 1 day. What I'm going to do is trigger a webhook function that's set to schedule every day that I've set up in the back end here. That's going to send a webhook to our Zoho Flow system. That's then going to complete one by one our late fees. So if we now go back to Zoho Books, click at invoices, I'll give it a refresh. We now have another 2 invoices that have been generated at 20% of the value of the 2 overdue invoices. It didn't trigger for the 3rd invoice, which is due in 1 day, as that isn't late yet, so it's not going to get a late fee. So that's how the function works. What we need to set this up is access to 2 different applications. So we need access to Zoho Books, and then we need access to Zoho Flow. If you use Zoho One, or if you pay for a Zoho One license, Zoho Flow will come as part of Zoho One as that package, essentially. Next, I'm going to show you how to set it up. So to set it up, we're going to need a few different things. We're going to need a schedule function on the back end of Zoho Books, an automation rule that'll trigger hourly or daily, monthly, however you decide to set that up. So that's a custom function, really easy to do. I'm going to paste the code in this reply I'm going to do in the Zoho Community. So I'm going to paste all the code in there with just some fields that you need to replace. All you need to replace is organization ID, and you can get that from copy and pasting at the top here. This will be your org ID and URL. And then next, you'll need to paste in your webhook from Zoho Flow. So I'm going to set it up all again from scratch so you can see what to do step by step. So what we're going to do first is we're going to go to the back end of the Zoho Books, and we're going to set up a new connection for Zoho Books. So to do that, we go to the setup menu. We're going to come down to developer space. We're going to go to connections. Here we go. So if you've already had a custom function set up, you may already have a connection for this, but for the sake of it, I'm going to show you how to set up one from new. So you're going to do new connection. You're going to search for Zoho Books. Select Zoho Books, and then I'm going to show you the ones you need to add on. So I'm going to leave this because I already have one set up. So call it Z Books. The reason we're going to call it that is because in the custom function it already refers to Z Books and it saves you from changing it. And then you're going to want to select all of these on. So Zoho Books, transfer orders, all, sales orders, all, reports, all, vendor payments, all, warehouses, all, settings, all, sales return receives, all, expenses, all, contacts, all, invoices, all, and then click save. Once you've added that connection, we're going to now set up our schedule function to communicate with Zoho Flow. So before we do that, just make sure you've got Zoho Flow open on another tab, as we'll need that in a second as well. So just to be clear, what we've done now, we've set up a new connection. So when you go to view my connections, you should have a connection with Zoho Books called Z Books with these permissions. So once you've done that, the next step is to set up the function. So we're going to go to automation, schedules. I've obviously already got one set up here, but I'll do a new one just to give you an example. I'm going to open this in a new tab as well because I'll need that code. So we're going to do new schedule, give it a name, then what we're going to do is paste in the code that I give you. You're going to need to replace the organization ID, so this will need to be your organization, which again is in your URL. And then you're going to need to add in your new webhook URL as well. So to add in your new webhook URL, all you need to do is go to Zoho Flow. We're going to create a new flow. We're going to call it Zoho Books late fee. Click create. The trigger we're going to select is obviously webhook. This is where we're going to copy and paste our webhook URL. So we'll copy this, go into new schedule, into the custom function you've just created. I think it's this one. Yeah, this is the one. We're going to replace the URL. So just highlight it and Control V. Make sure it's correct. And then that's all you need to do. That is everything you need to do. So you're just going to replace the organization, replace the webhook URL. Then at the top here, I forgot to mention, you're going to select how often this webhook is going to trigger. So if you want to check for late invoices every day, which would make sense, select it to trigger daily, and then when you want the webhook to start. So if you're going to start charging them on Monday, select Monday, or if you're going to start today, just make sure you select a time in the future. If I do 12:30. Once you've done that, you should be able to save. Okay, so this is not going to let me save because I've already got one set up, but if you click save or save and execute, it should save fine on yours. So I'm going to slip over to this one. If I leave this page, and let's imagine, because it's exactly the same, that this is the one that I've set up instead. So we click save and it should let us save that fine. Next, what we need to do is trigger this function so that it comes through on Zoho Flow. So we're going to click next in the Zoho Flow page, test webhook. Then what we're going to do is execute this function. Execute now. We should then get some payloads. Oh, sorry, it won't work on this one. This is a different function. So if you click off this, like on Blue Peter, this is one that I set up earlier. So if I retest this again, when we execute it this time, we'll then get the payload. So you should get the same as me. So you should get a grand total, which is the amount of your invoice, and then your invoice ID, which is the unique ID that allows us to find that specific invoice. So once we've done that, we'll click done. And then what we need to do now is build out our actual function. So the next thing we need to do is actually calculate our late fee. So the way you do that is go to the Logic tab, come down to Custom Functions, and you're going to create a custom function to represent your late fee. So I'll do another one just to give you an example how it works. Do late fee 2. Return type is going to be a float, and then your input parameters is also going to be a float. Then you're just going to call it grand total. Create. Next, all we need to do is essentially write our calculation. So our new value is going to equal our grand total. And then all we're going to do is add in the calculation that we're going to use to calculate our late fee. So if we wanted to calculate a late fee of 25%, we'd do divided by 100 times by 25 is going to give us 25%. Semicolon on the end, new line, and then return new value. Semicolon, click save. It's that simple. How this works on the page is when we add in one of these late fees into the function, again we'll need to connect the webhook to it, so it would come out like this originally. You just drag it to the next page or to the next stage, and then in here we'll need to connect our grand total. So when you first click into it, it'll look like this. All we're going to do is paste in our grand total from our webhook, click save, connect that to the next bit, which I put a fetch invoice. So to add in fetch invoice, all we do is we go to apps, Zoho Books, click it to expand all the options. Click it to expand all the options. Then we're going to find fetch invoice, drag that in, connect it to late fee. Then when you open this up, if it's your first time doing this, by the way, it'll force you to create a connection. Just call it my Zoho Books connection. Down here we're going to be searching for the invoice by invoice ID, and then we're going to map in the invoice ID that comes from our webhook. Dead straightforward, should be easy to do. Next we're going to drag in fetch customer, and we're going to do the same thing. So we're going to wait for this to load first. Search for the customer by contact ID, and then the search value is going to be the customer ID, which will come from our fetch invoice record, which is here. So all we do is click on that in that field and it'll paste it in. Done. So now we've got our information, we've calculated our late fee, we've fetched the correct invoice, we've fetched the correct customer. Now all we're going to do is create our late fee invoice. So again, all we do is drag in the, is it up higher a bit? Create invoice option, connect it to fetch customer, and then we click into this. This is going to be unique to you because everyone calculates their invoices and has different requirements. But we're essentially going to fill in this information. So your customer ID is going to be a custom value, and then the customer ID is obviously going to be from your fetched customer. Your billing address and ID and shipping address ID again comes from your fetched customer. So here, and then your shipping one's further down here. The rest of this you can decide if you fill in or not. I generally won't be on this because it's not an actual system, but again, depending on how your company sends the invoices, you'll need to fill these in specifically. The date is obviously going to be today's date, which you can get from the system variables at the top, so you just map that in. Then the important one is you're going to select your late fee product as your product ID. So if you've not got a late fee in your products, you'll need to go to your Zoho Zoho Books. We're going to create a new item, so a new product, and it's just going to be called late fee, and the rate is going to be 0. And then when you come back to your Zoho flow, you'll be able to select late fee as your item ID. But down here in the item rate, we're going to map in the late fee value. And then that's it. You can fill in the rest of the information if your company requires that and go through and set this up correctly. But once you've done that, click done, turn on your workflow, and then you can test it by going to your schedule on the back end, hovering over this blue arrow and clicking execute now, and that'll execute it for all of your invoices in the system. So be warned, if you've got a lot of overdue invoices, it's going to calculate and create all them as drafts inside of your Zoho Books. And that's how simple it is to set up. So do you want to do it one more time? So if you do execute now, if you go to history, we can see here it's 12:10 at the moment here. So we have the one that's just been completed a second ago, and we'll have that one that's been completed now. So that when we go back to our invoices, we're going to have all the times we triggered it, plus the two most recent ones. So a couple of caveats for this, and just a couple of things to keep in mind before you set this up. Obviously you can see here that it's been triggered multiple times, and so multiple invoices or late fee invoices have been created. If in your case you need to only generate the late fee invoices once, you would need to add in a custom field to dictate whether that has happened, and then update your code to only look for ones where the late fee invoice checkbox or whatever isn't ticked, and only look at them. But again, I'm sure you'll be able to figure that one out, or otherwise you can actually hire me to set this up for you. If you go to addisonbooth.co.uk, you can hire me. It'll probably take me an hour to set this up remotely on your computer, and you can give me whatever criteria you want to have these triggering. But that's how simple it is to set up. You can have a play around with this yourself, set your own criteria yourself. You know, you can see it's not rocket science to do, so I'm shocked that it's took 12 years for someone to come and sort of put this on as a reply on the community post. So if you just follow that step by step, you paste in the code that I give you, just make sure you replace the organization ID, make sure you replace the webhook URL. And again, if you want me to set this up for you, or if you have a bit more of a complex requirements for the late fee or for the criteria, go to addisonbooth.co.uk, and you'll be able to either schedule a free 15-minute introduction with me where you can tell me about your requirements and I'll tell you if it's possible or not, or you can actually schedule an hour in my diary where I'll connect to your computer remotely through Zoho Assist, and I'll set this up live on your system. So yeah, that's pretty much it. If you found this helpful, if you go to addisonbooth.co.uk again, you can actually leave some feedback for me to say thanks, which I'd really appreciate. But yeah, any questions, leave them on this video. I'll get a notification and come back to you on there. And best of luck with it. I'll speak to you soon. Bye bye.